everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I'm just going to open up. There we are. Hello, folks. Hi, Bernadette. Hi, Emily, Bobby, Clara. Hello, Jenny, Karen, Lisa, Rosemary, and Teresa. Hello, hello, hello. I'm going to turn off chat just so because I got to keep myself focused and attentive for you. Bobby, did you get everything you needed?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, folks, we have a lot to cover. I have been, I'm just going to mute the line, so hold on, everybody. Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, great. All right, folks. Again, I'm going to apologize in advance for not paying attention to my, not making eye contact all the time because I got lots of notes and much to cover, and my seasonal glass and my seasonal, pretty. But again, lots to cover. So please, forgive me for not making eye contact on a regular basis because I don't want to miss anything for you. Bobby's going to pop the notes in as we go, as usual. There's a lot to cover. What you're going to find, I've done things again a little bit differently, a little more. Every year we get a little better at this. So I've done a comprehensive review of the favored fields for the year, and there's a lot more than 5. Bobby's probably over there with her eyes very wide going, holy moly, because there are a lot of favored fields. I'm going to go over things a little bit differently compared to last year as well, because this year what I learned from you after experimenting with the idea of reviewing the archetype first and then telling you what planet or archetype is in that archetype. I know that gets a little confusing, but so there's the sign, which is a major archetype, then there's the planet, which is an archetype. You put the two together and you've got archetype dance. So what I started to do last year, and what I heard back from many of you really helped, was reviewing the overarching archetype, the big ones that were having particular influence, and then the planets, or the archetypes dancing within that big umbrella, okay? And that's exactly what I'm going to do this year for a review of 2019. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major oversight archetypes. One in particular is stronger than the others just because of the frequency and intensity of what's going on. There's a lot of players under that particular archetypal umbrella dancing that dance. And so we're really going to pay some attention to it, but the others interact and, relate. So we're going to review the whole kit and caboodle. Please, please don't try and keep pace. Don't try and take it all in. Remember, there's a recording, there will be notes. You can cut and paste them right out of the chat for yourself, or you can wait until tomorrow's replay. Email goes out. Or if you're an insider on Facebook, wait for the notes to be published there, and review, okay? Because this is going over a whole year. It could make you feel overwhelmed. It could make you feel a little, just remember, you want to take in whatever really pops for you. This isn't about retaining everything. We're not going to school. There ain't going to be a test, okay? Okay. The one thing I also want to say is there are a couple of big things underneath all of what's going on next year that really matter for us. And at the end of the review, I'm going to talk about those and dive into them a little bit more because they're going to matter. Okay? All right. Everybody good and with me so far? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. All righty. So here we go. So last year, I called 2018 the year of power, money, and women. I'm going to say take 2. So it's power, money, women, and story, story, story. Okay? So that's the addition. And it's one of the key things that we're going to talk about, because for purposepreneurs like us, that's really going to matter. Not the only thing, but it's one of the big ones. And you'll hear what I mean as we review. So let's first talk about the big kahuna archetype it's been in play and will remain in play throughout 2019 and is pivotal, okay? Capricorn. It was working overtime for us in 2018. It's going to continue to work overtime for us in 2019. Let's talk about the character of this particular archetype, its call, its desire, and its focus. And then we'll go over the archetypes that are kind of housing themselves inside that character of expression, so we can see the nuances, all right? So Capricorn's call as an archetype is to harness and invest our energy in the task of building solid, sustainable structures that care for everybody. Sorry about the noise in the background, folks. It's a little hot in my building today, and if I don't have the window open, I will melt. So again, to harness and invest our energy in the task of building solid, sustainable structures that care for all, okay? Its desire is to build that which will ensure community, state, nation, or civilization growth. To build that which will ensure a community, a family, a state, nation, or civilization culture will grow. Its focus is to persevere in the work of learning how or cultivating the capacity to harness, build, and provide without losing touch with or disconnecting from those the building is providing for and the values distinct to the community, family, state, nation, civilization, or the builder. Okay? Bobby, that's an addition. So not losing touch with the values that are really the principal structure that gives inherent character. Like, what does this nation, what does this community, what does this civilization, culture, family, what does it care about most? What does it stand for? Okay. Now, Capricorn is also the overseer of, one of the overseers of enterprise, if not the biggest. So enterprise, not for us, is overseen by this one. Now keep all that in mind, the call, the desire, and the focus, and the fact that it's very specific to folks like you and me. And let's look at the planets that will be inhabiting that energy and expressing their own in tandem with it over the course of 2019. So the first one is our inner guru, or Saturn. Now what's really interesting about this is our inner guru in Saturn is in its home sign. It is where it vibes the strongest. It's at home and it's going, oh yeah, this is my domain. Okay? Been there since December of 2017, so we've been feeling this for a good while, and it will be there till December of 2020. So we got another 2 years-ish of this. Now, the things that are really interesting about this, and I'm not going to get into a humongous amount of detail, but I want to cover the highlights for you. Because this particular expression has, over the ages, inherently been expressed by men. It is focusing a great deal of its attention on the structure of culture right now. And in particular, patriarchy and power structures, inherent, historical, cultural, all those norms, and what effect they have on the building of solid, sustainable structures that care for everyone. What are the rules that get created that we may or may. Now, given that the focus of this archetype is growth, growth can take on a very different point of view and has been very intently, if you look at the headlines, over the last year, year and a half. What is growth here? Well, a lot of what's being said and a lot of what's being felt is that the structures, the way we've gone about building structure and who decides who gets to do that, how it happens, whether it can be challenged or undone, like all that stuff, up for reconsideration, up for grabs a bit. The interesting thing to note is this. Our inner guru is also responsible for our connection to internal wisdom. Not emotional wisdom necessarily, but the oversight wisdom, the wisdom of building things that are true. And I don't mean truth, I mean everything lines up properly. You know how you use a level to make sure that everything joins up and is level, so things are straight, they're not wobbly, they don't tilt, that kind of thing. There's a truing going on that is pulling out and challenging the common sense or common wisdom of how things get built, what structures really need to be, and the challenge of structure. Okay? We're also asking ourselves to learn from a wiser, deeper place and to call on the masculine, okay? Because Capricornian the archetype is inherently masculine or has been, just saying that out loud, is asking us to learn how to cultivate and harness the building and providing for those who matter most, those who matter. And it's also asking, well, who does that include? Well, there's been some discussion about that, yes. There's also been some discussion about that in business. Around, you know, who are you niching to? Is that inclusive? Are you excluding people? Is there possible racial profiling in that? Like, there is some major review going on in here because wisdom is pulsing. Our inner guru is going, think about this again, think about this again, think about this again. Okay? Big deal. Huge deal. Some serious forces of change are shaking once solid foundations and even causing some of them to crumble, perhaps not fast enough for some of us and perhaps too much for others. Okay, depending on where you happen to sit in terms of your point of view and your personal belief system, your state of consciousness, et cetera, this is big deal stuff. Here's the thing to know about 2019. Resistance to that change may actually be futile. And I'll tell you why. In addition to our inner guru being here, our transformer Pluto is here. And there's going to be 3 eclipses in Capricorn over the course of this year, roughly every 6 months apart. January, July, and December. Okay? So there is going to be continued rumbles as our transformer and as these 3 eclipses, which are major juju. You've heard me talk about the power of eclipses before. And the generational impact, because eclipses really speak to generations of folks, as well as these big movers. They call generations of folks into play in response to this archetype's pulse. To rethink things, to review, like if you're feeling a pull to wisdom and to be involved in the shakeup of structure, because structure is no longer enabling or fostering nourishing growth. And the idea that even the ideas around which structure and building happens and in whose care that happens is all up for grabs. Okay? It's a really big deal. Now, our transformer has been here under the umbrella of this archetype since 2008. Gee, what happened in 2008? Shaking up the financial structures. That was the beginning of some significant political change in the United States, because as I recall, the first Black president was elected or installed. Was that when was he elected in 2007 and then took office in 2008? I think that's how it went. Our transformer is going to be here till 2024. Okay, so another 5 years. Some of us might be going, wow, man, this last 2 years been intense, man. Cultural changes. I want you to understand that this is the changing of the guard. I'm going to say that very clearly. We are in the midst of potentially a changing of the guard. Who is tasked with the responsibility and the power of building solid, sustainable structures that care for everyone? Who decides and oversees that? Who learns how? Who harnesses and holds that power? That's the question. And that's showing up all over the place. Okay? Big, big, big opportunity to change the guard. Now, here's what that means for us. Remember, this is the year of power, money, women, and story, 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 right? Well, that means that power is under review, significant review. It's also under challenge. It also means that those of us who historically have not been those in power are being called upon to learn how to persevere in the face of the challenge of changing the guard culturally, and whatever that means in our lives and in our work and in our business. And 2, learning how to harness and cultivate the capacity to build solid, sustainable structures that nourish everyone and provide. Now, if we have historically not been the ones who had the right, the opportunity, whether that's something we believe is given externally, or whether we believe we inhabit it within, or whether you believe it's a mashup of both, and just for the record, I believe that is the way it goes. Our work is to challenge and review the internal structures and foundations that have us continue to believe or remain convinced of our own powerlessness. Our transformer is there in part for that reason, and so are the eclipses. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? It will also mean some significant changes in the way we work, live, and conduct business, because all those things are structural. Like, the structure of our lives is going to be up for grabs, in part because all of this stuff is being questioned, challenged, and the guard. This guard is going, no, you can't have it. And this guard is going, we're not asking for it. We're just telling you it's not yours no more. But this is doing the work of really kind of, how do I hold this differently so I don't become that? How do we not become okay? So our inner guru is in Capricorn, its home side, really squishy, very much at home. The call of deep wisdom, in particular to this call, this desire, this focus. December 2017 till December 2020. Our transformer is here and will be till 2024. And we have 3 eclipses here. So big jolts. January 5th, July 16th, and December 26th. And I'm actually going to give you an overview of all the eclipses that are going to happen this year, because there's a couple more a little bit later in the broadcast, okay? So you have them for your calendar. Now let's talk about a little bit more about Pluto and Capricorn, because boy, oh boy. This means that we have to pace ourselves. We really have to pace ourselves. We're in a transitional period, a period of extraordinary change, internal and external. It's like the tectonic plates are moving beneath our feet. And we have to learn how to be in a kind of dynamic balance as we live in the midst of transformation and be agents of transformation. So it's being affected by transformative shifts and changes while being those who influence those transformational shifts and changes. So we're learning a whole lot while we're excavating a great deal and addressing it inside and outside. And so pacing yourself, balancing yourself, or helping people do that is a big, big deal. Okay? And I wanted to make sure I reviewed that because, boy, it matters. Really, really matters. Now, let's talk about one other thing that I myself have experienced, and I know a lot of other people have, because Saturn has a really particular energy. It's very earth-oriented. It wants to bring things down and create form. You put that in Capricorn, which is, again, its native sign, or its native archetype, and it loves and appreciates solidity, stability, security. It's not the only archetypal sign that does, but boy, oh boy, does it matter here. And it really loves it in business, in organizations, in government, oh my goodness. And so to some degree, it resists change because change, finding solidity within the frameworks that we live in today. So let me say this differently. It isn't Saturn that resists change. It's our expression of and related to our understanding of this particular archetype, because we don't know how to create solidity or stability or security in the midst of change. We haven't lived there in a long time, and I'm not even sure we've lived there in this way currently ever. So Saturn keeps trying to put things together, and Pluto's like, no, we're going to blow it up because it needs to go. No, we're going to blow it up because it needs to go. Okay? So you have what can feel like two opposing forces. Now, this is in part responsible for why binaries, gender, this is how it gets done, not this, then that, either or, kind of like all that stuff is getting blown up. And a lot of people who really don't know how to function or even begin to comprehend, even begin to imagine migrating in that direction, scares the living willies out of them. They're busy putting it back and insisting with, iron fist that, no, you can't let these are the rules. Okay? So there's a kind of push me, pull me that goes along with this. One of the risks, one of the potentials, and why I'm paying really close attention to the fact that it's our inner guru that's here. The reason I love Saturn as much as I do, because it involves the creation of solidity and stability, but it wants to do that with evolving wisdom. And healed or balanced masculinity. And again, the notion of binary, the words and the frameworks for this haven't really shown up yet. Because male, female are two ends of an opposite spectrum. I don't mean that. I mean the traditionally masculine ways. out there in the world, linear, logical, one foot in front of the other, A plus B equals C, this way, not that way. It's, you know what I mean? That's the way we've known how to create. And this will mean a change in our understanding of how to create, because it has to fold in the other side, allow in the other side of the creative cycle, or the creative energy, which is feminine, so that we're not on the poles, we're in dynamic area in the middle. Okay? The other thing that we also want to watch for as women is that we help ourselves, and I'm real serious about this, that we help ourselves divest ourselves of patriarchal indoctrination, cultural power structures inside ourselves. And you're going to hear when we talk about the favored fields, like that's a big deal. That we don't carry forward inside us as we move into positions of leadership and power, building, because this is really good for us. We're being called out, like it's a big deal. But we have to reach inside and help ourselves divest ourselves of the indoctrination in the ways that have existed for us for centuries. Okay? Let's talk about the favored fields here, because there's quite a handful. So I'm just going to read them over. Remember, you can come talk to me in our group space in Facebook if you have questions or you want to explore any of these. Like, let's talk about this stuff. We don't have time to dive too deep right now, but here's the overview, okay? Systemic remodeling and renovation, from homes to business big and small, to government, to international alliance and trade, you name it, systemic remodeling and renovation, okay? Power to the people movement supports, legal, medical, psychospiritual, everything. Power to the people movement supports. Okay, patriarchy and power systems dismantling, which is related to the second one, but not exactly the same as the second one. And supports for those doing the dismantling. Leadership reimagined. So I'm going to call this reinvention training. Like, leadership is going through a reimagination or a reinvention. And leadership training that takes us in new directions, watch for that. Or if that is your work, accountability reimagined. I'm thinking of one person in particular who has been twigging about this for quite some time. It's likely to work with leadership reimagined. Again, wink, wink at the same person, but doesn't necessarily have to be. I'd be shocked though if it doesn't. Power reimagined. Dynamic training that asks us, what is power and what is authority? What is it? How does it function? And that's the other thing that I'm actually watching, is that average citizens, regular people, are asking these questions, because in watching the headlines this last year, 2 years, we have begun to see more clearly than we've ever seen before as regular citizens how power works, or has. Because we, by and large, don't put ourselves in position of leaderships, we haven't studied power. But we've started to. Have you noticed? That's not a coincidence. What's likely going to start happening is that we're going to do it more officially. And so if your calling, your work has you specialize in power training, on-demand production that safeguards ecology. So there could be a revolution in manufacturing, base materials resourcing, accountability. Like, there's just going to be some big stuff go on there. This is a new one too, experiential retail. I kid you not, experiential retail. and a merging of online and offline experiences during product or service research and purchase. Okay? People want more experientialness to it. Activism amplified, particularly by and for women. So the study of activism, there's going to be some, it's already been in play, reimagining what that is, who leads it, which voices are listened to, and innovation in activism, a change, or a noticing that the goals of activism might need to change, and the way we go about it, the approach to it, will likely be changing, okay? Architectural renaissance. Because this has so much to do with structure and building, I am watching very carefully that there's going to be a wild renaissance in architecture and design, okay? Government reform, legal reform, economic reform, corporate reform, family structure reform, patriarchal power systems reform, and I'm going to throw in white supremacy. And I know we don't like that word, but it's real and it ain't going away, and we need to just belly on up and take a really good look, folks. Ecological reform, minimalism, I suspect is probably going to go. Now, we've seen a lot of this of late, tiny house movement. There have been minimalism surges, but over the course of the next year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, we're going to see it increase. Architectural living space design renaissance. Now that's because of one of the other players under Capricorn. So it builds on itself. So we have architecture and living space design, working space design renaissance as well. There's going to be some new understandings about what architecture is and what it can do. And design of living space or working space. And I would keep my eye close on that. I'm already seeing some people go, ooh, I'm feeling it's time. Going green surge, big deal, like bigger than usual. And I bet a lot of people are going, yay. It will include a surge, and I've actually seen news of this recently, in big oil and gas divestment. Even the banks, some banks are going, you know what, we're pulling our money out of this and we're putting it over here. The uprise of the have-nots. Now, I don't say uprise lightly, and I don't know that this necessarily means violence in the streets, but I will be shocked if we do not see more people taking to the streets, everyday people in large numbers going, Watch what's going on in France, okay? Structured giving. Giving that actually helps us know it's happening on a regular basis and in very, what's the good word? In ways that are routine, predictable, that we don't have to think a lot about after we've done our initial research to verify that what we're giving to and how we're giving works, is really lines up with our values. So just watch for some innovations in that, and that getting blended into business design, okay? And by the way, architectural and living space design, you think that might have anything to do with business model redesign? Just saying. New business, so that's where this comes from. New business, small business power is going to grow, purposepreneurship is going to grow, and the recognition that business models need some serious reinvention. Ordinary, average, everyday folks who go into business for themselves are going to be looking less for, so tell me what business model works, and more for, so tell me what business models exist. Now I'm going to go back to the drawing board. And they're going to be doing it in ways that are really unique and different and innovative and values driven or purpose driven, okay? So if that's your cup of tea, that's your ball game, good for you. Citizen leadership. citizen leadership. We're seeing it all over the place. Just look at the headlines in the United States. More people are signing up to be leaders than we've seen in a long time. And people who historically have not been permitted access to leadership. Claiming our inner authority. Now, I want to talk about this because I'm going to put beside it the right to tell our own story, the right to craft our own narrative. Story, 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 remember? And we're going to see this over and over again. Truth and secrets distribution. Now, parentheses, responsible handling and context, please. Because remember, this is under the banner of Capricorn and our inner guru, and there's like, let's do this wisely. Let's be responsible, okay? And things not to be, go, bye-bye support. So stuff that really is no longer meant to be in place. Systems, structures, just, you know, we've watched them just go bye-bye. Whether that's a tangible, real, material thing or in here, things that just, you know, kind of go bye-bye all of a sudden, and they're not coming back. And we don't have great support systems, and we've begun to realize we don't have great support systems. And waiting for someone on high, whoever that on high happens to be, to take care of it or do the work of building those support systems, we began to realize that the people, it's up to us, okay? So those are the favored fields for 2019 and probably beyond to some degree, under the banner of the archetype Capricorn for our inner guru Saturn, our transformer Pluto, and those 3 eclipses, okay? And the things you want to watch out for in particular are those pulses, January, July, and December, okay? Now let's go on to Taurus. It doesn't play as large, but because it's earth energy, it's an earth archetype, just like Capricorn is, there is some amplitude here, even though there's only one planet sitting in it throughout the year and beyond. Because earth energy is being echoed, there's bigger, okay? And it's going to be useful for us as purposepreneurs. So let's review the call, the desire, and the focus of this particular archetype. Call to harness and consolidate creative energy by providing it with a vessel through which to take form or in which to take form. Harness and consolidate creative energy by providing it with a vessel in or through which to take form. Desire is to nourish and care for all things through matter. Okay? Focus, wise stewardship, and the mothering of things into vibrant life. So this is an inherently feminine expression. Okay? Now this is traditionally, it's just so funny, our language, and it's a reflection of the cultural. This has traditionally been called husbandry. I want to suggest that we are materializing things. This is the act of harnessing and consolidating creative energy by creating, by providing it with a vessel or creating the vessel through which it will come to life, become material. Okay? Now, the planet that resides here throughout 2019 is our benevolent rebel, aka Uranus. He moved in there in May of last year and will be there until April, the end of April 2026. So these guys aren't fooling around. They're around for a long time, working in tandem to help us move things. Here's why this is really interesting for us, particularly as purposepreneurs. We're calling upon ourselves to bring things into the material world. This is also one of the key archetypes that helps with money making, and business creation. How do you harness the ability, the creative capacity, the creative energy, the creative agency to give things form, to help them turn into the material. So something that's alive in you that wants to be a body of work, bring it to life and give it shape, give it form, give it substance. Bingo. This one's calling us, folks. So what I'm expecting to see is a huge surge in purposepreneurship and support for purposepreneurship. I'm also expecting to see a huge surge of folks wanting to give birth to a body of work that seems ephemeral and unshapen and unformed, and they can't quite put their finger on it. They don't know what language to use, blah, 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 because they have to, I have to give this shape, I have to give this form, I have to bring it into the material world. And do so in a way that brings about the creation of value, because that's another aspect of what this particular archetype oversees. Okay, but we're going to be doing it in very different ways, because this is our benevolent rebel. This is the archetype that goes, let's do this in a way that's a complete surprise so that we bypass any conditioned notions about how that's actually supposed to happen. This is one of the archetypes of invention and ingenuity and curveballs and pioneering and holy moly. Okay? La la la. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal for us. It also means that business is going to be going through some pretty significant shifts and changes, and so is economy. So let's go over the favored fields, okay? Ready? TV, film, and music, the entertainment making and distribution revolution. We've been seeing it for quite some time. Watch for continued and maybe even wider spread changes. Just to give you an idea, Netflix completely changed the face of television, completely changed the nature of television. Streaming directly, bypassing broadcast television, advertising, the whole schlemiel, it's changed everything. So has the fact that if you become a Netflix viewer, you can, quote unquote, binge watch episodic programming from beginning to end in, 1, 2, 3, 4, however long sittings. It means the nature of how we engage with programming content has changed. And think about this, the power is more in the hands of the viewer or the consumer than it's ever been before. And that is changing how television, how movies, how music are being created, and how they're being distributed and published. The other thing to also remember is that we're just not consumers, we're also creators. So there are more citizen creators empowered by platforms and channels that make it possible for us to actually be the ones broadcasting, okay? Creating and broadcasting. So continue to watch that and look for ways that can overlap with what you're doing as a purposepreneur. Storytelling and narrative crafting. I'm going to add an extra piece, reclaiming the lens through which story is told. I think this last year has been really educational for many who've been really watching, because it's helped us see that the way stories are told, the way they're written, the way they're approved, the way that, the whole schlemiel, is because they adhere to a certain way of seeing things or seeing. We're essentially telling the same story over and over again. And those who haven't had the quote unquote, the right, the authority, the permission to tell their stories are going, wait a minute. So formulaic television, formulaic movies, formulaic books, like all that stuff, I'm not going to live that formula, and I'm not going to retell that formula. Okay? So storytelling and narrative crafting, because that's an art. And it's huge, and it's big in small business and purposepreneurship, and I'll come back to that later. But also reclaiming the lens through which story is told. Now that also goes back to divesting ourselves of enculturation, because we won't be able to help but tell story, including our own, through that lens if we haven't noticed that it's actually fixed in place. Okay, social justice work and innovation of social justice work. Lather, rinse, repeat consistency of effort collectives. I predict that we're going to see collectives rise up, people helping themselves together, shoulder to shoulder, we're all the same, do consistent, repetitive work within small business, but from an inspired perspective. Okay? Now keep all the other flavors of favored fields in mind as you think about that, because it's going to be a new kind of community. There's a little bit of already in place, masterminds and but these are going to be different, and I will not be surprised when I start seeing them. Venture capital goes digital and power to the people. So venture capital, because venture capital has, again, largely been the domain of men or moneyed people. And that's starting to change, and I think you're going to see a whole lot more. Innovations in monetization, how we monetize culture or value creation. And again, this goes back to people like you and I going, we're not going to do the formula. These models need renovation. We need to reimagine, okay? Innovations in marketing. And then that loops back up to innovations in monetization. Venture capital goes digital, power to the people, and storytelling and narrative crafting, as well as entertainment making and distribution, because they all overlap, right? Or could. So when I'm talking innovations in marketing, a lot of it has to do with this, but it also has to do with the overview of Taurus and our benevolent rebel in underneath its expression. Because what we're starting to realize is that marketing teaches and influences profoundly. Marketing indoctrinates, it enculturates. Really? So it's a kind of school? Now what do you want to do with that? Okay? The gig economy is going to continue to grow, but expect twists in how that happens relative to the other things we've talked about. Adventures in economic experimentation. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Innovations in farming and food supply. And the provision of artisanal goods related to food. I don't really drift into that territory very much, so I can't tell you more than we're going to see some big changes in our food supply and in farming. Innovations in internet communication. So think back earlier to this rising desire for experiential retail or experiential purchasing or experience with products and services or those who provide them. I'm imagining that that's going to factor in here too. Claim and raise your voice training. Now, I know that's been around forever, particularly for folks like us. I have a feeling that's going to go up a couple of notches and become more potent. And also innovate. There'll be some ingenious stuff likely arise. And anything to do with the arts. In large part because many of the things that we've already been talking about, activism, the digital revolution, the dismantling of systems, the raising of voice, adventures in economy, they're all going to affect and be channeled through the arts. I also suspect that part of storytelling and narrative crafting and reclaiming the lens through which story is told, it's likely going to happen first in the arts and then move into the spoken and written word. Okay, there'll be people who need to go the art route to bring it up to the point where they can then find or form words. Okay, so that could be really important. Art, not just as art making, but in recovery or finding a story. Okay, now let's talk Sagittarius. This one is huge for purposepreneurs too. Call, to bring us all into connection with the wonder and the richness of life's diversity. Okay? Desire for the variety of and ways of life and culture to enrich and nourish. Okay? It desires variety because it knows it is that variety of ways of life, ways of culture that enrich and nourish us. Focus. The journey rather than the destination kind of mindset. And it's not quite mindset, that's not really the right word, but I don't have another word for it. It's way of life. Expansion of understanding through travel, real or metaphoric. Think Anthony Bourdain. I'm never sure how to say his name. Yeah, travel and as it transforms our understanding and our and forges connection, introduces us to diverse. So it breaks us out of our conforming shells. All right. Love of and enlivenment by the search or the quest. And the throwing off of accepted cultural, social, or conditioned confines. I mean, that's Sagittarius. Our fortune finder, Jupiter, is sitting there, and that's his home sign. So he's like, oh, I've come home, and we're going to travel. I have my seat. It's on an airplane. We're going to go, and we're going to find fortunes you've never seen. Oh, it's going to be gorgeous and yummy, yummy. So that's what this is about. Now, he's been there since November the 8th. And he'll be here until December the 2nd. And yum, yum. Now, this is going to mean some big things for folks like you and me. I'm just going to refer to my larger notes because there's a couple things in there that I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to mention. Well, I got to go scroll back up. Give me a sec to just place myself, y'all. Okay. There we are. Okay. I want you to know that the last time our fortune finder was here was when the iPhone was released. That was June of 2007. And I want you to think about all the things that have changed since then. It has been reported that more than 5 billion people, 5 billion people will have mobile connectivity and be using smart devices by the end of 2019. So 2007, when the last time he was here, release of the first really big hit smartphone, smart device. And now to the end of 2019, So some things to really keep in mind. Global expansion. So this is one of the reasons why I said earlier, you know, the whole idea of resisting the shifting of structures and power bases and all that stuff futile, in part because of this. You know, the whole nativism, you know, just take care of ourselves thing that's kind of popped up all over the place. This is a counterbalance to that. It's like, we're going global and you come or you don't. And if you actually think that you can control this, okay. What this says is, nah, you can't. Here's what's really important for us. This is a great time, a really great time for you and me, purposepreneurs in general. If you already have an established base of business, to go global, to reach out into other international markets, but you have to do it in a way, and here's the other, this is why divesting yourself of structures of old, we have to do it while divesting ourselves of colonial overview mindset. Okay, and go investigate what colonialism means and how it affects mindset, particularly in business. Okay, and if anyone here specializes in that and you have something to say, please pop it into the chat. Or you know of resources and links, please pop that into the chat or put it in our Facebook space. Or come to our Facebook space and let's have a conversation about it, because it's going to matter. It's going to matter. So if you want to, and then you will get all kinds of support for reaching out to other marketplaces if you respect that marketplace, if you approach its culture with respect and the desire to get to know it and to celebrate its richness, to ennoble its richness, not tell it how to behave. Ooh. To add to it, but not overrule it. Okay? Oh. I went to Malaysia years ago now. God, it's probably 10 years now. I was invited to speak at an international conference. There was a two-story jumbotron screens behind me. That's how big the audience was. I've never been so scared in my life. Standing before these people and speaking. The reason I mention this is because I came from North America and I was walking into a culture. Now, I don't know if this is across the whole culture. This was absolutely a limited experience. I was only there for 4 days, but I was shocked and unsettled, deeply unsettled by the fact that I was given the kind of deferential authority. It was just anything I said could have gone. And oh my goodness. Now I'm imagining that's changed a great deal since then. I hope it has. But I raised this because we have to help people recover from the enculturation that has taught them to defer to authority, including spiritual or transformational authority and leadership. And that must be hand in hand with this, okay? So here are the other parts of the favored fields, but that's very much in the background, and I just needed to say that for all of us. International travel and cross-cultural connecting, innovations in high-speed travel. We're gonna. So if you're an engineer or you work with engineers like Elon Musk, like we're gonna hear some. There's a couple new Elon Musks with wild kind of nomadic entrepreneurism. Now I know that's been around a while, but we're gonna see a surge. I'm expecting we're also gonna see a surge in companies actually helping highly valued employees live a nomadic lifestyle while they work for them, and that will be considered a bonus, an employment bonus, so that they're not locked into cubicles, they're not locked into geography. Like, just, I tell you, we're gonna see some really interesting changes. So the reason I mention that is because supporting nomads and supporting nomadic entrepreneurism and supporting companies and transferring to this as an idea of in terms of bonus and lifestyle support, big deal. Off the beaten path, small business startups. I think we're going to see a huge number of startups over the course of the next year. Take your business global and grow your global audience. So it doesn't, wow. Publishing and distribution, particularly self-publishing. We're going to see some big ooh in that. Storytelling and narrative crafting. But what will precede that is investigation of story. Like, where did this come from? Where, you know, so it's inquiry, curiosity, investigation, and from that, a revised kind of storytelling and narrative crafting. Okay? Media making, particularly in small business purposepreneurship. Now you've heard me say something like this before in other favorite fields. That's because they interact and there's synergy and okay. Online experiential learning. And the more enjoyably entertaining and engaging, the better, but affordability is going to matter, really matter. So for all of us who do online education or virtual education, please keep that in mind. That doesn't mean that you can't make a good living, but we're going to have, so business model, shift up, change up, monetization and innovation, link back to here. Immersion programming. We started to see some of this, people wanting to go and live the work they're studying for chunks of time. We're going to see more of that over the course, and that has something to do with the drive for experiential learning, experiential retail, experiential purchasing, experiential education. Okay, immersion program over longer term and go someplace, because it combines the love of travel to the need to travel, have your mind expanded, be exposed to different ways of life, etc., etc., etc. The education of and support for girls and women. Watch that take a big leap forward. Watch for backlash too. Binary busting of all kinds. All kinds. You heard me very, stumbly attempt to do something here today. Watch, there's going to be some very interesting stuff show up. Watch for it, though, for the people who often are pushed to the margins because they are not at one or the other end of the spectrum exclusively. They're somewhere on the continuum. Those will be the ones who do the busting and the teaching here. And it will be up to us to make space for them and to amplify their voices, just saying. So if you know yourself to be female and cisgendered, or know yourself to be male and cisgendered, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people who live on the continuum and know what needs to be busted and brought to our attention and changed. They're the ones who are going to respond to this. So if that's you, bless you and thank you. I know the work's hard. I mean it. Divisiveness resolution training. So think about experiential learning that engages and sort of entertains. Racial unconditioning in life and in the workplace. That's been going on for a while. We're going to see another big boost this year. Okay, so those are the favored fields. Folks, I'm aware we're over time. I still have 2 to go. So if you can continue to hang out with me, awesome. If you can't, please know, I know you got to go serve and take care of your work and your people or yourself, which is equally important. And the recording will be here for you. Okay. Now let's talk Pisces, because this one's a doozy too. Its call is to keep in touch with what we may have lost touch with. It is what wants us to be in touch with what could be. Ooh, the waters of possibility, okay? Its desire is to retrieve and return to us from the depths of mystery and our subconscious, what we've forgotten or pushed to the side and need to remember and embody. And its focus is the future we know, sense, feel, or dream is possible. Okay? Now, what's really interesting is our dream keeper, Neptune, who calls Pisces home. That's right, we got 3 of the big ones in their home sign, which means they're doubly powerful. He's been here since January 2011. He will be there until 2026. Big deal. Okay? This is what's responsible for the explosion of spiritual seekers, for the explosion of purpose-oriented work, whether it's by purposepreneurs like you or me, or in corporate culture, or all of it. Like, it is all over the place. This is what's largely responsible for that going kapow. It's also the driving force archetypally behind things like the opioid crisis, because this puts us in touch with what we've forgotten, including pain. And if we don't know how to be with pain, or we don't know how to help people in pain well, which we'll move in the direction of things that relieve pain that might, over the long term, do us harm. Okay? So here are the favored fields in relationship to this. Addiction recovery, shame recovery, and shadow work. Brene Brown's work going to continue to do really well. Story and narrative reclamation work. Did you hear me say story again? Secret sharing and how to go about that in a way that is power eliciting. Mindfulness and meaning work, purpose and calling work, spiritual awakening and seeking work, power and leadership in spiritual work. And I mean that. Power and leadership in spiritual work. The headlines just hit about John of God being accused by hundreds of women of sexual abuse. And we have not yet had a conversation amongst ourselves about power and leadership and all its perils in spiritual work. It's like we don't even look at it. Well, guess what's going to start to happen in 2019? Work to save, preserve, or work with water. Work to save, preserve, or work with water. And I suspect that that's going to involve uplifting and amplifying the voices of Indigenous people a great deal. The arts, again, the emergence of stellar talent, masterful talent, the desire for art training up through the roof, art as architecting the world we can feel is possible, art as a spiritual practice, art as a healing practice, art as voice finding. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge to a few of you out there. I know you're already out there doing your thing. I also won't be surprised to hear science news that the possibility of time travel has been unearthed, exists. Just saying, I know, way out there, but the last one I want to talk about is Aries, because there's some super support coming from that direction and will be with us for some time. So let's first take a look at the archetype. Its call is to experientially know and inhabit the energy of what it takes to come to life, to be alive, to push and test the limits, to bring something to life. That's its call. Its desire is to be born, to come to life. Its focus is to support and enable the emergence of what is meant to come to life, to infuse the individual with the call to be who they are, in concert with and in contribution to life, and to honor the struggle or fight for life. That's right, to honor the struggle or fight for life. Not something that comes easily to us spiritual folks who think that peace doesn't include fighting. Okay? Our curative effect, Chiron, otherwise known in astrological circles as the wounded healer, is sitting in this archetype, has been since January 2011, will be until January 2026. But because of all this other stuff, 2019 is going to be a very interesting year. Okay? The thing that I want you to really hold on to with this is the active, like we have to take action to bring things to life and to heal ourselves so that we can. All right? Active. So it's masculine meets feminine. Let's go. Favored fields. Soul searching support, counseling, coaching, therapy, self-love reimagined, and I'm not kidding. Like, what the hell is that anyway? How do you do that? In practical, livable, revolutionary terms. Oh, you just got to love yourself. That's what's going to happen and has been happening. I've been watching it in social media on a regular basis. Self-image reinvention. So remember the narrative storytelling? Okay, that's connected to this. Because what we're finding is that as cultural shifts happen, our self-image haven't been in permitted power. Our self-image is stale dated. It's still, you know, a couple of iterations ago, and we're needing to update that, our self-image, our sense of who we are. Voice story reclamation, okay? Wellness, healing, transformation businesses with a couple of caveats, and focusing on addressing the wounded masculine and feminine imbalance and addressing power and sovereignty. And some of the things I talked about earlier. Because this is, I want to come to life, I want to come to life. Okay, cool, we need that fire. What do you typically do with that if something happens to get in your way? Reclamation of our narrative around personal power and personal authority. What is that? Really, what is involved? What does it include? What is it? Story, 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 story. Belonging reimagined. I know. Helping folks discern where they actually belong, first and foremost, and how they can use that, lean into that to help them discern where else, where they bring that belonging. Oh, what? They bring belonging. What? Gonna be very interesting. Group dynamics of truth-telling. So watch that one. Sovereign shadow work. So we talked about shadow work before, but I think we're going to start to see shadow work that helps people return to a sense of sovereignty. I have power over my life. I am the authority of my life. So it kind of goes back to power and authority again. And here's another one. Live event resurgence. The last few years, live events have kind of gone. And I have a feeling, because a desire for experiential learning and a desire for immersive experiences is moving around, I got a feeling we're going to see a live event resurgence, but we can't do them like we used to. So live event resurgence, yes, with reinvention. If it's same old, okay. Let's look at the retrograde and eclipse calendars too. So just jot these dates down or just cut and paste them out of the chat because Bobby's going to pop them in. Our communication savant, Mercury, will be in retrograde from March 5th to the 28th in Pisces. July 7th to the 31st, starting in Leo and ending in Cancer. And October 31st to November 21st in Scorpio. Remember to add 2 weeks pre-shadow and 2 weeks post-shadow when you're popping this in your calendar. Okay? Our fortune finder, aka Jupiter, will be in retro April 10th to August 11th in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is one of the big ones. Our inner guru, Saturn, will be in retro from April 29th to September 18th in Capricorn. Ooh, one of the big ones. Now remember, with retrograde, we're rethinking, reimagining. That's why you heard me use those words earlier, because there's a good chunk of time that this guy is going to be asking us to reinvent, reimagine, etc. Our benevolent rebel, aka Uranus, will be in retrograde for 5 days in January from the 1st to the 5th in Aries, and that's one of the big ones. And then again from August 11th, 2019 to January 11th, 2020. I got that number wrong in the notes, Bobby. It's written down 2010, sorry. And that will happen in Taurus, which is another one of the big years archetypes. Our dream keeper, aka Neptune, will be in retrograde June 21st to October 27th in Pisces, one of the big ones. Our transformer, Pluto, April 24th to October the 3rd in Capricorn. and our curative effect, aka Chiron, July 8th to December 12th in Aries. Reinvention, 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 reinvention. Okay? Now, quickly, the eclipse calendar. I know I said to you there's 3 taking place in Capricorn. I already mentioned those dates. January 5th, July 2nd, and December 26th. But there's 2 more. January the 21st, we'll have a total lunar eclipse supermoon in Leo. And I'll tell you more about that in January. Watch for a kind of impromptu live mini about that, if you're a Soul Map Insider on Facebook. And then again, July the 16th, or pardon me, July the 2nd, a total solar eclipse in Cancer. Okay? Whew. Okay, friends, let's talk about story. Of all the things I see here, and there's lots to be very excited about for purposepreneurism, story is the one I'm paying the most attention to. How we tell story, how we use story, where story actually originates from, whether or not we're fluent in story and narrative. Because there's a lot of baggage around the idea of story and storytelling. You know, just say the word storyteller. Given the fact that we have been in the midst of tremendous period of, I don't trust our leaders, I don't trust our organizations, I don't trust the media, like I don't trust is in something of a crisis at the moment. And so the idea of becoming a really good storyteller has to go, what do you mean storytelling? You mean making shit up? No. Not at all. You may have heard me talk in 2018 a couple of times about how people who have been not at the center culturally or anywhere in the world, not granted admission or grudgingly granted conditional admission to power, authority, you know, really having a say over what happens or doesn't happen in the culture. These folks have begun en masse to say, wait a minute, you have been telling our story and you've been taking shit out or erasing it completely. You have been altering facts. You know the old adage, to the victor goes history. What we're beginning to realize and what we've begun to say out loud to ourselves is our story hasn't been in our own hands for a long damn time. And we're not okay with that anymore. And while we're not okay with it anymore and have begun the process of claiming it back, we don't yet know what's involved with that. So here's what I want to say to us. The other thing that we've also begun to become aware of is that marketing is a form of education. Marketing has profound cultural impact on all of us. We're influencing ourselves and being influenced all the time. It is one of the most prevalent forms of cultural education, and just going to say it, indoctrination. And folks like you and I and others who are, you know, feeling pulled by wisdom to go, wait a second. Is that okay with me? Is that what I want to participate in? Are these models and these frameworks and these, you know, strategies, do they actually have me perpetuate something I don't want to? And a lot of this is instinctual and not necessarily verbal or conscious, but it's okay. The other piece in here, and I'm going to throw it in, Charles Eisenstein. He's not the only one, but he's one of the more renowned voices for the truth of this. We live stories. Archetypes are patterns of possibility. This is the story we want to live. Yet in their purest original form, they are representative of the highest potential of what we are, energetically and materially. But all of that has been filtered through, channeled through the stories of culture as they currently exist. So they've been modified and shifted and adjusted and controlled by our current understandings, our current cultural stratus. And one of the things that Charles has been saying a lot of late is that we're trying to imagine ourselves into a new story. The old story isn't working, but we have not yet really landed in the new one. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm going to cry. In every arena this year, the call to be an agent, pulling that new story in, finding it, giving it language, giving it shape, giving it form, giving it material effect in the world, in our lives and in the collective life, is huge. We are trying to be agents of that new story. At the same time, we are working to divest ourselves of the influence and conditioning of the old. Is that making sense to everybody? So, what does that mean? Storytelling is going to change. Narrative, reclaiming what that means, where it comes from, how we go about it, what we understand of it, while we divest ourselves of the conditioning and indoctrination that has us see through a certain lens or a certain box or a certain set of conditions, ourself, one another, life itself, and then become educators, trainers, facilitators. So by using story to help those who know that that piece of the story we're bringing through is the one they're supposed to somehow be aligned with, a part of, help happen. Which is one of the reasons why marketing for small business, particularly purposepreneurship or conscious business, powerful, extraordinarily powerful. We're going to have to lean into this one this year, folks. I want to, anybody who does storytelling work, I want you to pay really close attention to them, because you need to get your bum in the seat of someone who knows how to do this well. I want you to also pay very close attention to how clear they are. Use your discernment. Lean on to the support of others to help you discern. Don't dismiss them out of hand if some of what they have to teach or a lot of the way they go about teaching is a little on the surface and old story. Please don't. Because there's a lot of people who specialize in narrative and storytelling who may not be completely clear that they still have one or more feet in old story. But that doesn't mean they don't have something to teach you. That doesn't mean they don't have something to help you usher yourself into. You're just going to have to help yourself go in and remain sovereign. But we need to learn how to reclaim our story, our ability and our authority for storytelling, okay? While removing and divesting, as I've mentioned before, and learn the craft of storytelling and narrative crafting. Because we're trying to bring in the new story and we're trying to reclaim, and this is what I really want us to understand, marketing is one of the clearest forms of storytelling and narrative transmission there is today. No kidding. And this is what many a purposepreneur knows. Intuitively, instinctively, they don't have words for it. They're bumping into, well, what am I teaching here? Without having the mental understanding that that's what they're bumping into and having disagreement with. And so being involved in marketing has become problematic because they know down deep in their spiritual DNA that they're meant to bring through a story that influences, that inspires in ways that helps us move into a new story. And we've not known how to do this. Why? Well, because storytelling has been in the hands of those who run and oversee culture. And the guard is changing. Is that making sense to everybody? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. So of all the things I've shared with you today, and there's been a lots really worth being very excited about. This is the one I'm going to be watching closely. This is the one I'm going to be paying attention to closely. This is part of my own wheelhouse. So I'm more than excited about this. And I really want to help you be excited about it too. We have work to do though, because we've never known that we needed to be good at this. We are attracted to story because it pulls us in the direction of the next iteration or next expression of our potential. And that's why story and narrative is so freaking important. But it has to be sovereign storytelling. And not just from ego, but from the whole of us. Does that make sense? Okay. And I hope that me saying this helps you become excited, want to lean in, want to learn, want to explore. Remember that a lot of this is going to be active for more than 2019, but 2019 is kicking something massive off in this particular direction, because in every single one of those archetypes, story shows up as an active force. We are actively attempting to reclaim the power of directing the course of our future. And it will be done through narrative crafting and storytelling. Okay? It will change how marketing is done. It will change how business is done. It will change how money is made. It will change the way we relate to it. Will change so many things, including our relationship with ourselves and our sense of who we are. And it matters. Okay, y'all? Okay, I have my chat open. That's it for me today. I would love to see if anybody has a question or anything that they wanted to share with me or share with the group. Is there a question you wanted to share? An aha, oh my God. Emily says, I feel like I've been seeing the beginning of this and even have had to make space around me having my own opinion. Yep. Me being allowed to have emotions. Yep. And letting go of the fight for I have an idea and I'm right. More to let me make sure I'm hearing you. Right. So the word that I want to offer you, in case it's useful, is centering. White folks, we have a hard time with this because we've been centered for a long time. Even if we are women and we're not at the peak of power, we're still centered in the culture. But what you're talking about, Emily, is whether I get centered or not. And centering comes from us, not from anybody else. And that's what you're really talking about. Does that make sense? I love you too, Linda. This is the single most wow things. I've been pulled to story and I'm enrolled in a program kicking in January. Good for you. Khadija, do I say your name right? I don't know if I'm saying that right. If I'm butchering it, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Would you mind if I took you off mute for a moment and asked you to pronounce your name for me so I can honor you and say it correctly? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. How do I properly say your name?
But Khadijah's good.
I'm sorry, you're coming through garbled. I'm sorry, I can't really hear you very well. Can you try again just in case?
Is this better or still garbled?
Yeah, it's still garbled. I can hear you, but it's choppy and it sounds electronic. Sorry. Can we try next time? Would that be okay? Okay. So I want to get back to some of the things I've seen here. That's awesome that you're going into storytelling and training. That's awesome. No questions on my end, said Karen. Glad you started with stating that we need not expect ourselves to grasp everything. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sally Joe, this is so exciting. Pulls everything I've been working to master all in one. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome, Louise. Thank you, thank you. Oh, could spell your name phonetically. Yeah, you could do that. That's a really good suggestion. Thank you, Louise. I love you too, Sally Joel. I love you, love you. Happy days are here to come. Yeah, yeah. I really like, Emily said, I really like what I've seen of Serena Andrea's work with teaching story. She actually put a link in here for others who want to go explore. Thank you, Emily. That's awesome. Sylvia, more deeply understanding why I've been experiencing the wisdom of inclusion in my travels. Yes, ma'am. I've been thinking about you for the last 2 weeks because everywhere I look, travel and spiritual sojourn and leadership, oh my goodness. Like next year has you written all over it, Sylvia. So I'm not surprised to hear you've been feeling that way. I would have been shocked if you hadn't been, actually. Khadijah. Thank you, Khadijah. Thank you, thank you. I wanted to make sure I honored you by saying your name correctly. I appreciate your helping me do that. Great story work from Lucid Living. That's great. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to share or ask or say? Bobby, did I miss anything that someone posted earlier?
I was taking notes so fast that I really did not attend, but I don't think that there were any questions that came through in that earlier.
Did anybody pop in a question that I missed? Yeah, re-listen. So Louise, I totally get you. I've been preparing this for 6 weeks. There is such a volume of information here. I know exactly what you mean. For me to be able to do this, I had to sit with it for a really good long chunk of time. And we're going to re-listen and review over the course of the year because I'm going to revisit these themes because they're going to weave in and out of every month's changing influences. So just know that this will not be the only opportunity to take this in because you're going to have today's chat notes, and you're going to have the recording as well as review every month over the course of the year. But yeah. Oh, you're welcome, Lisa. It matters that I, sit with this, that I take in the scope of it and understand it as well as I can and offer it to you in the most concise way possible without undercutting the substance of it. Yeah, and thank you for your appreciation. I appreciate that. Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you, Lisa. How did you guys like the way we did the overview today, giving you the archetypal umbrella first and then talking about the players underneath it? Did that help give you a sense of the character of the year and what to expect in terms of context? Best ever structure. Okay, like hearing that. Okay, good. That's good to hear. I was hoping it would be because of the feedback I'd heard from, the monthly overviews. This was a big way to do a whole year, and I'm glad that it was useful. And you like the Fey fields for each archetype too. Good, I'm glad. It made it more explicit. That's really good to hear. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yes. Experimentation and innovation in practice, friends. And the collaborative nature of that. Like, I don't know if this is working until you tell me. And honestly, the way of doing this was a byproduct of a conversation I had with one client who said, could you put in the context? And I went, let me think about that. So this is experimentation in action through collaboration. I need you to tell me whether this works or not. I don't do this in isolation. I don't do it by myself. None of us do. The creation of work and the betterment of that work is a collaborative act. That's just the truth of it. We have to be the ones to take the first step. We have to be the ones to run the experiment or be the ones who are experimenting. But we never do that alone. So in case that's useful to know, and thank you very much for wonderful feedback. I really appreciate it. And if you have any other suggestions, I'm serious about this. I want to know. If something didn't work for you or you can feel that something else could improve and you have an idea, please, please, please let me know. Okay? I'm going to be in and out of our Facebook space until Saturday. And then I'm going to go dark for the holidays until January the 3rd. At that point, I'll be back and I'll be happy to dive deep into questions any of you have about any of this material, particularly if it's relevant to your work or your business, okay? And please do that. Like, pull out of this what's particularly wow for you, and let's explore together. Ask questions about it, circle it, look at it, because that's collaborative too. Okay? Thank you for your feedback, Emily. I really appreciate it. Folks, we're about 37 minutes past the usual end of our live. And so I need to say bye-bye. And I imagine you probably do too. But I want to say this before we go. I said this to one of my beloved coaching groups yesterday. You guys are my inspiration. I want you to know that. I don't know that I've ever said that out loud to you before. When things get tricky and challenging for me, you are my inspiration. Knowing that you're out there doing the work, whether it's seen or not, knowing how committed you are and how heartful you are and how passionate you are, lifts me up. It's what keeps me in the game. It is what brings me hope. And often it is your work and your ongoing efforts that help me see this stuff in action. You amaze me. And I respect you in ways I'll never be able to articulate in words. So I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you so very much for everything that you've done and the things that you haven't done this year, the things that you said no to because it was time to say no. I love you, I honor you, I respect and appreciate you, and I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful holiday, however you celebrate it. Thank you so much for being here and for one another. And I'll see you in 2019. Bye. I'm going to unmute everybody so we can say goodbye. Ready? Somebody's got music going.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye. Is that
Bye.
good?
Bye.
Hi, everybody.
Wonderful holidays.
Bye, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, all. Take good care.